welcome to Jewish World Weekly on I-24 News. I'm Emily Francis. Every week, we'll focus on stories, issues, and personalities of Jewish interest here in Israel, as well as in the diaspora, the global Jewish community. And we start with our top 5 items in the Jewish world, presented by Nicole Zedek. Hi, Nicole.
Thanks, Emily. Here are the top 5 items in the Jewish world this week. American support for Israel has reached its lowest point in a quarter of a century, according to a new poll by Gallup. Sympathy for Israel stands at 46% compared to 33% for the Palestinians. Democrats are 3 times more likely to be sympathetic towards Palestinians, while Republicans are 7 times more likely to support Israel. Meanwhile, over half of Americans support the creation of a Palestinian state. Australian police have arrested and charged 14 members of an organized crime network in connection with a wave of anti-Semitic hate crimes across the country. According to New South Wales police, none of the suspects had previously displayed any anti-Semitic ideology, and they wanted to prey on the vulnerability of the Australian Jewish community. This comes as an alleged explosive attack on a synagogue foiled in January was actually a hoax, with an organized crime group wanting to divest police resources away from them. A Belgian writer who said he wanted to, quote, ram a sharp knife down the throat of every Jew he met, he's been acquitted on racism, Holocaust denial, and hate speech charges after a Belgian court found Herman Brusselman's words in the Belgian magazine Humo, they are protected by free speech laws. The ruling has been slammed by Jewish groups, with one Jewish leader calling it, quote, a deeply alarming message about the state of the fight against anti-Semitism in Belgium and Europe. Freed hostage Egon Berger has been gifted a 130-year-old violin originally from a Jewish musician who died in the Holocaust. The violin belonged to Sagui Beck, who restored it a few years ago and refused to play it. He gave the violin to Agam, who says she wants to play it at the March of the Living at Auschwitz. And archaeologists in Italy have discovered a 1,600-year-old mikveh, the ritual bath used by Jewish women for purification. It was uncovered at the Ostia Antica Archaeological Park near Rome and found alongside an oil lamp decorated with Jewish symbols, including a menorah and palm leaves. Those are your top 5 items in the Jewish world this week. Back to you, Emily.
American-Israeli former hostage Sagui Dekel-Chen was released from captivity a month ago, reuniting with his wife and 3 children. One was born while he was in captivity. Sagui's father, Jonathan Dekel-Chen, has been on the front lines fighting for his son's return as well as return of the other hostages, mainly lobbying in Israel and the U.S. And we are now joined by Jonathan here in Israel, the father of Sagui. First of all, hello, thank you for being here. And how is your son and your family?
Thank you. Thank you for asking. Sagui, all things considered, is doing okay. He, still has quite a bit of recovery and rehabilitation to go through. But he's home. He's safe. He's reunited with his wife and 3 beautiful little girls, and sort of playing some catch up because, of course, he was completely out of our loop in a living hell for 498 days, and that's quite a bit to catch up on.
Yeah.
And that's aside from healing his wounds and that he sustained on October 7th and the horrific conditions in Hamas captivity.
Right. You have worked tirelessly in the U.S., obviously in Israel as well, as you're one of a handful of families that go back and forth. I mean, do you feel now that there are positive results of all those efforts? Obviously, we have many home, but many still stuck both alive and not alive.
It will only be enough, and that's the key here. It'll only be enough when everyone is home. Everyone. From our home alone, from Kibbutz Nir Oz, small community on the border with Gaza that was ground zero for the Hamas massacre on October 7th. Of the 59 total hostages, 14 are from our kibbutz, 9 of whom we know have already been murdered. The other 5, we're not sure what their condition is. So, there's really no beginning again. There's no stopping, not just for us, but I believe for the vast majority of Israelis and for Jews in the diaspora,
right,
getting everyone home.
And also getting to the Jewish communities in the diaspora. Obviously, many fighting and keeping the plight of the hostages and their families, on, front and center. But there's been a lot of criticism. Not all of the American Jewish organizations have done, I guess you could say, as much as they could. Tell us more about that. I imagine disappointing.
Well, it's something that I've been concerned with for quite some time. Not just as the father of a hostage, now a newly freed hostage, and not just as a citizen of Israel, but also as a historian of the Jewish people, who knows a little something about the history of the Jewish organizational world, Jewish philanthropy, Jewish advocacy. I have done as much as I know how to get certainly the major Jewish organizations in North America, not to criticize anyone, but rather to come out with what I think is the strongest and simplest of statements, that it is a Jewish priority, historically and right now, to prioritize the fate of the hostages beyond any other goals that this or that government may have. That, as a people, we simply must not, we cannot, we never have allowed Jewish hostages, Jewish captives to suffer and die as they have been doing at the hands of Hamas, while doing nothing, while standing by. I find that mind-boggling, and again, after many attempts to get the major Jewish organizations to come out vocally and to simply state those facts, I believe that some, not all, some have been better than others, for sure. But it is time to make that known, and for them to be for there to be accountability around this.
Oh, thank you very much, Jonathan Dekel-Chen, for being here and continuing to fight on behalf of all of the hostages.
Thank you for having me.
A firestorm is surrounding President Trump's decision to detain and deport Palestinian anti-Israel activist Mahmoud Khalil. Khalil, who has a green card and was a student at Columbia University, is said to be a ringleader in the violent anti-Semitic, anti-Israel encampments at Columbia University in the wake of October 7th. We are now joined live by I-24 News senior correspondent Mike Wagenheim, who is in Washington. Hello, Mike. This has definitely been quite a topic that's been talked about, with already a roller coaster just on this one person. Explain more.
Well, it's really created as if we needed more divides here, division, even within the Jewish community somewhat on Mahmoud Khalil, this green card holder, now detained in Louisiana. There was a court hearing yesterday in federal court in the Southern District of New York in Manhattan. A judge there told the U.S. government they could not deport Khalil until this hearing took place. Now the judge wants more information from both sides as to what they feel are the strong points of their case. Meanwhile, Khalil will get to speak with his legal representation. One call yesterday, one call today, as they prepare for a larger hearing now coming up on March the 27th in front of this judge once again. And that doesn't even take into account separate immigration proceedings that may take place here. The government is essentially saying, hey, he doesn't need to be convicted of a crime to be deported under the Immigration and Nationality Act. Any green card holder, not just a visa holder, even a green card holder with legal permanent status, that status can be revoked if that person is found to be aligning with terrorist causes or to have positions that are at odds with U.S. National foreign policy or national security concerns. So the burden of proof is not high. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt like it would be in a criminal case. They just need to present clear and convincing evidence, more like what you would see in a civil type of case, in order to pass any kind of judicial review that may be forthcoming here. So the bar is relatively low and very much left at governmental discretion. The other side, Khalil's side, is saying, hey, he has First Amendment rights. He has rights under the Constitution. He was participating in free speech, disagreeing with the governmental policies. But the government is saying it went way beyond free speech. He was a spokesperson and was active in these not only protests that were going on American college campuses, but the violence that accompanied them, the takeover of buildings, the harassment of Jewish students there, the vandalism of these buildings. It goes beyond just a matter of free speech, which of course has its limitations as well.
We obviously the president has made it clear. We all know that ICE is already a robust group of people, so he's made it clear that more and more people that are believed to be complicit in these could be deported. So is this legal case kind of setting a precedent for what the Trump administration and local authorities could do with others? Because we know there's been a lot of violence against Jews for the past year and a half on campuses.
You know, in some ways it goes beyond a precedent, because this was an interesting test case, if you want to call it that, for the Trump administration to use here, because the burden is higher for a permanent resident holder, somebody on a green card status, than it will be just someone on a student visa. Student visas, you can revoke lickety-split. There's not much you need to do at all. But a green card holder, the burden's actually higher. So the Trump administration actually rolling the dice a little bit on this one, because if they fail, well, then the momentum kind of dies out a little bit for revoking just run-of-the-mill student visa holders. So yes, there is a precedent here. There is the test case being set, but it's on a much different level. The flip side of that is, if the Trump administration is successful on this case and able to clear that higher burden, well, it just makes things easier down the road to deport more of these student visa holders who have taken part in these violent and harassing and intimidating demonstrations.
Also, President Trump announcing he's going to cut $400 million in federal grants just to Columbia. We know Columbia is not the only university. We've seen it all over campuses, not only just in the U.S., but also throughout Europe. So how are American Jewish groups responding to this? And again, could this be a precedent for the same at other universities?
Well, the Trump administration is already actively investigating other universities here, and it would be not a surprise at all if by the end of the week they made a decision to revoke funding on other universities. It's interesting that the Columbia administration, including the administrator of the journalism school there, is telling students, advising students at least, don't take part in these demonstrations if you are on a visa. Don't post any social media content that the Trump administration may use against you. If you already have, delete it. These are active things that the Columbia administration is doing here, because, and the administrator quoted here said outright, we cannot protect you at this point. But the American Jewish community at this point, kind of two different schools of thought. One is keep the pressure on, make sure it's unrelenting in terms of pressing the government to carry out the actions it says it's going to. The other school of thought is, hey, they're doing what they said they would do, at least to this point. Lay off a little bit, give the Trump administration the space it needs to carry out exactly what it said it would do in terms of these deportations, arrests, withdrawing of funding. The task force pursuing anti-Semitism on college campuses announced within the last week or so they're investigating 60 more universities for failing to clamp down on anti-Semitism.
All right, always making things even more complicated. Thank you very much, I-24 News senior U.S. correspondent Mike Wagenheim. A new program called SafeU is equipping Jewish university students with tools to defend themselves and to actively navigate anti-Semitism on campuses. Developed by Hillel and the foundation of New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft, the initiative was previewed by three-time Super Bowl champion and Jewish activist and advocate Julian Edelman. Take a listen.
Hey everyone, Julian Edelman here, three-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots. And as a Jewish athlete, I know how important it is to feel proud of who you are and what you stand for. And college should be no different. I also know this past year has been tough for our community, especially on campus. But remember, you're not alone. There are friends and allies all around you, always ready to support you. That's why I'm teaming up with SCN and Hillel International to make sure you have the tools and training to protect yourself and others. Whether it's staying situationally aware or handling any problem that comes your way.
Joining us now from Chicago is Michael Masters, the CEO of SCN, the official safety organization for Jews of North America, here as well to talk more about this new incentive. Thank you, first of all, very much for being here, and quite a task in front of you.
It has been since October 7th. You know, we recognize that Jewish students should be able to focus on the classroom, not be forced to face a phalanx of individuals who are supporting foreign terrorist organizations, as you covered in the last segment. And that's what we're working to do collaboratively between Hillel, FCAS, SCN, and with other partners from law enforcement to our security professional network, over 100 across the country, our federations and other partners.
I'm seeing, on here a lot of, research, and, the statistics are alarming. We knew this was already percolating even before October 7th. So speak about kind of what those tools are. Is it something collaborative also to work with campus authorities, law enforcement? Is it, self-defense, strategy? Explain some of those tools they're learning.
Certainly. So first, let's recognize the reality, right? And since October 7th, over 500 incidents on our campuses that we've tracked, 120 encampments, the targeting of Jewish students, not just the takeover of buildings, but the active harassment and vandalization of facilities and targeted violence towards our Jewish students. So we gathered students from Hillel and across the campus environment and said, what is it that you need? And just as Julian said, they're not alone. We know they're not alone. We're going to be there with them. So SafeU is designed to provide them situational awareness training, how to navigate the campus environment. If the campus administrators aren't going to protect our students, we're going to give them the tools so they can be situationally aware. They know how to respond to an incident or issue. They can make their way through campus, coordinate on their own with campus law enforcement. We brought together 90 law enforcement organizations in a roundtable to include the FBI and Department of Homeland Security. A lot of those law enforcement organizations had been kept in the dark by these campus administrators about what was going on. They want to do their job to serve and protect Jewish students, to serve the community. We brought them together collaboratively, and part of this training is to encourage students reach out, coordinate with law enforcement. We at SCN Hillel, we're here to help you. We're here to make sure that you can get to a Shabbat dinner so when you're not attacked by somebody wearing a keffiyeh with a bottle like we saw at Pitt, or the AE Pie House at San Diego, targeted with fireworks, now being investigated as a hate crime. Or worse, George Mason's student on a visa who was planning an attack on Israeli diplomats. So we've got to equip our students with these skill sets, how to respond to incidents, how to be proactive, how to coordinate. And that's exactly what SafeU is doing on campuses around the country, while we're also working to increase the physical security of our Jewish organizations, securing tens of millions in federal funds to do that at institutions around the country and sharing intelligence and information.
Oh, wow. All right. Thank you very much. A robust effort. Thank you, Michael Masters, CEO of SCN.
Thank you.
Imagine hundreds of international change makers converging in one place with one purpose: Tikkun Olam. Israeli President Isaac Herzog has spearheaded a global initiative called Voice of the People, which held its first conference in Haifa, and already the momentum is building for a better future. Here's more in my report.
Moved to see everybody here. It's an incredible crowd of people, a dream come true, a great vision. But the real story is you guys, members of the council.
Israeli President Isaac Herzog is on a mission of Tikkun Olam and is raising his voice in a new way.
From generation to generation, we must come with new ideas, brilliant and bold ideas, of how we deal with our Jewish identity, which is ever challenged, especially in this era.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
and the lack of knowledge and understanding of the challenges that each one of your respective communities faces has to be told to one another. Look at the diversity that's in this room. Everybody's here, all facets of Judaism.
The inaugural Voice of the People 5-day summit in Haifa united and inspired a global movement never seen before.
We see this initiative not as a think tank, rather, but something, as we call it in Hebrew, tachlis. We want to actually affect the future. I keep telling the council members, we want to be part of the history of the future. I want you to tell your grandchildren, we were at the first cohort of Voice of the People, because we're building a movement. We're building something that will be told and taught about for years to come.
Being in the land of Israel at such a crucial time and sensitive time has given us the opportunity to feel that there's many ways to give back to Israel. It's like the first time that I feel diaspora Jews and local Jews were working together to make magic happen. What that magic is gonna look like, I still don't know. He knows. He knows. I still don't know, but we know we are working hard towards getting a common sense of one people, one Am.
I was physically assaulted with my group during the LGBT Pride March in Washington, D.C., and then the same thing happened again during the Pride March in New York City. Since 2016, I've been raising the red flags about Queers for Palestine. I'm meeting with Knesset members to advocate on behalf of the American Jewish population and speaking about how the Israeli political system very much has failed, in my opinion, the Jewish community internationally.
During the gathering, they also learned about impressive Israeli startups that are changing the world.
So how much it cost? For the drilling, the construction, the pipe, everything I told you, $65,000 at most to bring water to a village of 10,000 people.
But now the pressure is on for the debut council of 50 people from Israel, 50 from North America, and 50 from the rest of the world to literally put on their thinking caps and to get along for the next 2 years.
What's really incredible about being here is the innovation around this program. We have 150 people coming from very contrasting backgrounds, all with the same united ambition. You know, they always say 2 Jews, 3 opinions. There's one consistent opinion here. Everyone wants to contribute to the story of the Jewish people and the state of Israel, and that's special.
I started an online social media platform speaking about news and trying to make it much more easy and simplified for the masses. I never ever thought I'd do work in the form of journalism, and never crossed my mind. And so I think there's more and more of us, and I hope that they'll just continue to grow.
I can't say that you are handpicked because you were picked by an algorithm. But it's truly, each and every one of you is expected to influence the Jewish story wherever you are for the rest of your lives. Look how many terrible atrocities have befallen our people, and we strive on and on and on. And we do good, and we strive for the great values of Tikkun Olam.
Nominated Hollywood triple threat Jesse Eisenberg is now getting an honor of a lifetime after garnering critical acclaim for the film A Real Pain, which he wrote, directed, and starred in. He has now been given citizenship to the very country where many of his ancestors perished in the Holocaust. Here's more from I-24 News correspondent Joe Brown.
You might know him as Mark Zuckerberg or Lex Luthor, but now Hollywood superstar Jesse Eisenberg is rediscovering his roots.
First of all, dziękuję bardzo. I am so honored. I am happy to be a European member, but I am even happier to be a citizen of Poland.
After writing, directing, and starring in the award-winning A Real Pain, a film about 2 mismatched cousins going on a Holocaust-themed tour around Poland to honour their late grandmother, Eisenberg felt himself becoming closer to the land his ancestors grew up on.
I was walking the streets and starting to get a little more comfortable in the country. It occurred to me that something so obvious occurred to me, which is that my family had lived in this place for far longer than we've lived in New York. And of course, the history ended so tragically. But in addition to that tragedy of history is also the tragedy that my family didn't feel any connection anymore to Poland. And that saddened me and made me and confirmed for me that I really wanted to try to reconnect as much as possible.
Eisenberg grew up in a secular Jewish household in New York, the descendant of Polish and Ukrainian ancestors, including his great-aunt Doris. The movie was inspired by his own trip to Poland in 2008, where he visited the home his late great-aunt grew up in.
It occurred to me while I was there that there are so many Polish people who are doing far more to memorialize my family history than I've ever done. And it made me feel that much more connected to the country and made me feel that much more emotionally invested to connecting with Polish people.
Poland was invaded by Nazi Germany in September 1939, and over the following half a decade of occupation, 3 million Polish Jews were murdered, with thousands, such as Eisenberg's family, fleeing to unoccupied Europe, the US, or mandatory Palestine. Poland has been accused of Holocaust distortion in recent times, with the 2018 law banning anyone for blaming Poland for their complicity in the Holocaust. They claim that they too are victims of Nazi occupation.
I have to say that, as President of Poland, I'm very happy to see people from around the world, also from across the ocean, remember about their heritage, about their ancestors who came from Poland, and they want to establish ties with our country.
Receiving Polish citizenship rounds up a successful few months for Eisenberg. He was nominated for Best Original Screenplay at the Oscars for A Real Pain, whilst his co-star Kieran Culkin won the award for Best Supporting Actor.
And that is all for this week's episode of Jewish World Weekly. We sure hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again for watching. I'm Emily Francis. Shalom from Tel Aviv.